Welcome to Comic Book Pros, an interview show where we speak to the most interesting folks in comics and entertainment. We're your new hosts this year. I'm Remsy Atassi along with Sal Abbinanti and my brother Rami. This year we're diving even deeper into what it takes to make a creative life as an artist, to be a creator. Today's episode is a great example of that. We have a great interview with David Mack, and we'll get into all of that. First, we have a word from our sponsor. This episode of Comic Book Pros is brought to you by the Lake Como Comic Art Festival. This is one of our favorite events of the year, put on by an amazing team that we actually partner with, the Lake Como Comic Art Festival. If you've never been, this is not your typical convention experience. It's not about lines. It's not about celebrities. It's a chance to meet amazing comic book artists and other collectors and fans. Lake Como Comic Art Festival features world-class artists, exhibitions, collectors, and of course, the most beautiful surroundings in Lake Como, Italy. This is an incredible locale. Only serious enthusiasts and collectors come to this show, so if that's you, you know you gotta be here. This year's show is May 16th to 18th, and tickets are still available. So if you love comic art and want to experience it in one of the most beautiful settings imaginable, buy your tickets at lccaf.com and start planning your trip. So we talked to David Mack. He has Daredevil exhibition coming up at Como. He's also done a bunch of work on the TV show, which is wrapping up. What do you guys think of that? Have you checked that out?
The TV show or Mac?
Yeah, the show.
No, I think it's great. I mean, I think that it was one of those. My understanding is the grassroots comic people got together and through a little bit of a push and a little bit of PR, got Disney to pick it up again. And I know Mac worked on the last ones. I want to say he did art for a couple of the other Disney Marvel shows. I'm not sure if it was the Defenders or it might have been the other one.
I don't know. We didn't really talk about that, but
he's done a lot of production art for the Marvel team, for the Marvel films, for the Disney stuff, the TV shows, and it's always good stuff because Mac is. I've known back to Mac for 20 years. God help me.
Yeah, I have not caught all the new season, but I watched.
It's good. I mean,
the first episode
is back as Kingpin, and the main core is
awesome.
there. Yeah, I think it's following the Born Again story arc. With the Mazzucchelli graphic novel. It's loosely following it, but people in the comic world kind of know the Mazzucchelli graphic novel, Daredevil graphic novel is like one of the great graphic novels you want to pick up if you're into comics, especially Daredevil.
And I think the final episode is this week when this is releasing.
I didn't know that.
So people will see how it ends.
Yeah, for sure. We're coming to the end. Yeah, I mean, one thing was cool that we learned from Mac was that he has been working on production art, and he also did like Muse, the villain from Born Again. He's actually done all of Muse's art in the show. And that art and that same art has also been used for the promotional material. So all the stuff you're seeing. I mean, some of
you see it in commercials.
Yeah. Some of the stuff is from fans, but a lot of that stuff you're seeing plastered around.
The graffiti, exactly. He did that stuff. He talks about it in the interview. Yeah, it's pretty sick.
I recognize. I'm not going to spoiler alert kind of thing, but I see D'Onofrio's son is in it. He plays one of the Kingpins.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he plays one of the guys. I think in the early show he starts on his campaign, and that's not Gandolfini's son is the
yes,
and I think he has a bigger part in the show. I'm not going to give it away, but I'm just my opinion of who he's.
I'm not there yet. I didn't realize that he was in that. I had only seen him.
He's popping in the
Sopranos movie. Did you guys watch the Sopranos?
Many Saints,
movie?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that was kind of a miss.
Saints was kind of it came and went, and it was nice to see his kid, play him.
Sure. Oh yeah,
and he's perfect for this role. If he's going to turn into who I think he's going to turn into,
it was a great cast.
Then I think he's perfect for the.
I mean, Gandolfini and Sopranos. It's one of the best shows of all time.
It's a little bit too much, Italian propaganda. Hey, that's just
I think I've watched it like 5 or 6 times. Yeah,
I mean, and you're
memeable.
I was gonna say you're a big memer, Sal. Have you seen the Time Immemorial?
Oh my god! Have you seen these Sopranos meme pages?
Oh yeah, it's endless.
They're so good at
It's
doing
ridiculous.
especially with AI now. They'll do like the AI, I saw one that was like Tony Soprano and all these different AI scenarios and
Lord of the
AI
Bing.
video. Lord
Yeah,
of the
they've done
Bing.
the same with, and then God help you if you get on that algorithm, because then everything
That's all my algorithm is,
all I
dude. That's
get
you go
is
on my
all I
Instagram.
get
That's
is The
all it is.
Godfather and The Sopranos and The
I
Wire,
know, dude. You
you know.
start getting, and then eventually you see like 10 or 15 of them, and that's when you're like, like the lower tier is not there. The good ones are
Yeah. Well, the
ridiculous.
where the AI stuff gets a little scary is it's not just the video stuff. It's once they ape the voice, like they do
Yeah.
Morgan Freeman on a lot of stuff now. They do what's his face, Hannibal Lecter. They do
They
him.
Oh,
can
Anthony
do that.
Hopkins, yeah.
They do
They can do that. Like those guys can license their voice. I think some people get paid to even do that, where like they license their voice and then they can just go. The voiceover stuff, AI is really quite
They're
good
not
at this
all
point.
great, but some of them, if you can't kind of pick it out, you're like, no, that's not him. But a lot of it are like these motivational Instagram
Yeah.
pages where they'll use Hopkins and they'll use Morgan Freeman and they'll use even Alec Baldwin on a lot of them, and they're not using them to sell product. So I think they're probably not getting into trouble.
Well, but that's AI is used to just create the shovelware content. Like if you go on the internet now, you just feel like half the stuff you're crumbing across is just AI generated,
Yeah,
you know?
no, it's true. You get these guys, and you could kind of see the. It almost looks like Clutch Cargo, where it's an old video.
It's just
It's the old video,
it's
and
like not bad, but it's like not
well,
it's
if you're
also
not paying
definitely not
attention, you
real.
just go, oh,
Yeah,
you
it's
know.
That's the thing, man.
we were talking a lot. We talk a lot about, I think, with David, we talked about like the kind of creator economy because he's got his own. Well, he didn't run the Kickstarter, but he's got a Kickstarter collection book of his stuff. Obviously, we've done some Kickstarters before too, and yeah, I mean, how do you? Well, in talking to David, like he kind of had his take on it, and we like talking to those people. But it's like I kind of wonder how things are going to be changing now, like even looking at the production and stuff, like they're making these books and stuff, just the politics of it. I mean, to your point, like if you're gonna have to bringing stuff in from all around the world, it's complicated right now if you're producing that stuff as a creator.
Well, I think that's a thing that's going on right now that it's not, it's not political, it's not about one side or the other. It's just that we're in a space where we know a lot of people who are producing physical media. A lot of these creators now are doing creator-owned books and properties, and and so just like the production of that, like the actual production process is pretty disrupted right now. I don't have some
Sidebar: we have a production of our Blu-ray for our film, which was interrupted in route, but is hopefully coming soon. So we know a lot of people out there are waiting to get the Blu-rays for Legend of Kingdom Come, and they are complete. They are en route. They are coming across the border. Hopefully sooner than later. So trying to get it resolved, but yeah, it's I think everybody who's producing stuff right now is running into these problems, and I think creators like they are making the physical media, they're making books, whatever, right?
I think, guys, inevitably, it's a sign of the times, and I think it's
Yeah,
always going to
I think you're
happen.
right.
Regardless of who's president, regardless of political climates or what country you're from, whatever, you just kind of always have to adapt to what's going
It's
on.
true. If you're a
It's
creator,
just
if
how
you're
it is. I
independent,
mean, when
yeah,
I started getting into comics, it was rough, and you had this, and you had that, and you had, and then when the image guys came and the indie wave came in the 90s, it was all fat and happy, and then they
yeah,
saturated the shit out of it with too much stuff, and then it crashed again, and then Marvel went
yeah,
bankrupt, and then Disney
yeah.
bought so it's just always, it's like Vegas. You're up, you're down, you're up, you're down. You just got to leave with a pair of pants on.
And
You got
maybe there will be a boon too. I mean, even printing, like our printing, the way we do our printing, or people who are doing all kinds of stuff. Maybe there will be a boon to some domestic stuff for
Remedy.
that.
I
Even
think at the end of the day, you got to adapt, or you get
yeah,
soft and you die. And you could find 50 excuses not to get out of bed in the morning. So is it a perfect world with all this bullshit going on? No, of course not. But I think there's always going to be a rub, no matter
yeah.
what. I mean, it's like every day it's like, oh shit, what hurts now? Or what happened on the way to work, or what asshole cut you off in traffic, or whatever. So you just gotta kind of You know, I'm not
but
saying
That's true.
I'm
You
not
got to bob
for
and
it.
weave.
Don't get me wrong. I don't want any bullshit, but I'm just
Yeah,
saying that
yeah,
I
yeah.
find that there's always going to be a problem. As soon as you think everything is going good, like what they say, you want to hear God laugh, make plans, and then shit
Well,
happens. Then
I think that's true.
and
It's
shit happens.
it's definitely a real conversation for creators. Well, we talked to David Mack here. Let's get into the interview and we can hear what he had to say about being a creator himself. All right. Today's guest is someone whose work you've undoubtedly seen in comics, on galleries, streaming, the one and only David Mack. Whether you discovered him through his stunning work on Daredevil, his covers, his interiors, or his original breakout series, Kabuki, in the 90s, his genre-bending collaborations with other artists, like on the book cover, David's work is lyrical, expressive, and stands out on the shelf. He is a painter, blending watercolor, collage, calligraphy, and a background in graphic design and visual storytelling into something that is very personal and very poetic and very illustrative. He stands out from other comic artists, I think, who rely on painted storytelling, which we talk to a lot of painters, and that is not something that is easy in this world. So David's work across comics, design, animation, fine art, and in my research, the U.S. State Department or Cultural Department. So interested to learn about that as a cultural envoy. We'll have to learn more about that. It seems like a lot of the stuff he works on, characters are assassins and spies. So maybe there's like some kind of connection there. David is a creator whose work reminds you of a dream, I would say, which is my favorite kind of stuff. And we're excited to have you here. So David Mack, welcome to Comic Book Pros.
Thanks so much for that great introduction. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, man. I'm excited to get into it. Well, actually, we want to talk first about Daredevil. I think we're going to talk about your background because, like, a lot of time we talk to artists, we love to hear the story. And, like, I think a lot of the listeners, they like to hear the origin story and people want to know how people break in. And it's just kind of fascinating. But you have a lot of work on Daredevil, who's like having a moment right now. So can you talk a little about the character or I guess the show or what you've been working on with Daredevil, you know?
Yeah, my very first work for Marvel, I started as a writer on Daredevil. And you mentioned my creator-owned series Kabuki. That's what got me the offer to start writing Daredevil at Marvel. Kabuki is a creator-owned series that I started doing when I was in college, and I was writing it, and I was looking for an artist to do it, and I eventually tricked myself into doing the art for it.
Whoa, really? I
Yeah,
didn't know
man.
that.
Oh, okay, yes.
Wow.
Brian Bendis and I met in 1993. We became like best friends and working together. And at the time, he was trying to make a living as a penciler, but he was also writing and drawing his own creator-owned books. And he got me a job as his inker when we met. So we worked as a penciler inker team for a little bit. But I had written this Kabuki series, and Bendis was initially going to be the artist for Kabuki. I had written it, and I was looking for someone more experienced and talented than me to draw it. And but yeah, I eventually kind of tricked myself into doing it, which I'll be happy to talk about what might be a good way to trick yourself into getting your work done.
No, that
But
book's awesome. That was one
oh, thanks.
I definitely have seen it, and I was like, that's why you're saying that's your first one. That's kind of like
Yeah,
that's mind, or that's like
I should
you
give
yes, you did dabbling in art.
I'll give Dark Horse a shout out. Just in the last week or two, Dark Horse collected all the Kabuki books into one giant volume. So it's the 30th
Oh yeah,
anniversary, but it's like over 1,300 pages. It's a giant book. You know, really the majority of my work in comics in one volume. It's probably the best example of the diversity and range of my work in one book is that new Kabuki collection.
yeah, that's awesome. So okay, so talk about Daredevil. I had Kabuki too because I'm like Kabuki was one I was looking at when we were going to have you on the show, and I was like, this is awesome. So I do want to talk about it, but yeah, what's going on with Daredevil right now? Are you involved in any of that still?
Yeah, so talk about Daredevil right now versus
Yeah, let's talk
the
about it now.
start.
We might even come back to it, but yeah, let's
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, that's I feel like the most topical thing. Like,
great. the 7th episode of Daredevil comes out today. It's been coming out weekly. There's 9 episodes of the first season.
So you'll have already seen this because this is going to be dropping in the future, but that's great still. No, yeah, that's good
Okay,
context.
cool. Yeah, so by the time people see this, maybe all 9 episodes will have come out.
Yeah.
I don't want to give spoilers if someone hasn't watched it, but there is a figure in the story, kind of a Banksy-esque figure who creates murals that they kind of think of themselves as, socio commentary through their artwork.
Right.
And I do all the art that artist on the TV show does.
Well, that's awesome.
So all the murals, but also like all the art that they have in their like art studio, all their sketchbooks, their journals, I'm writing their manifestos and
Oh, that's
to-do
awesome.
lists.
So you put in a lot of work then, I would guess. Yeah.
Yeah, for the current TV show, Daredevil Born Again, I worked on it the first 6 months of 2023 until the writer's strike happened in mid-June. And then we when the writer's strike was over, we went back to work the first half of last year. So yeah, I worked on it the first half of the last 2 years.
That's sweet. What do you think of the new show?
It's really good. Yeah,
Yeah,
really good.
it is awesome.
Yeah, have you seen some of it so far?
I've just kind of watched the first episode. But I love what they do with the characters, and I'm hit or miss with like sometimes the comic shows. Like I honestly like I always am down like to read a graphic novel. I'm pretty much the books because I love the art. Sometimes with the shows, it's like hit or miss. Some characters which hit for me are other ones that don't. But I love Daredevil, and we've worked with some other artists who have done stuff on him and the whole
Thanks so
Kingpin
much for
storyline
that.
and everything. I think and
Appreciate
D'Onofrio. So
that.
that's like I think he crushes it. So yeah, it's pretty tight.
Well, and I think
You've seen it too, right, Rami? You've seen it.
Yeah. First couple episodes, and I think one of the things that's cool, David, with your work on this is like so much of the promotional material has been these kind of murals and like you saw
I've
all
seen
of
that in the ads. I didn't get to that part in the show.
Did you do some of that as well?
I've seen the promo.
That's your stuff too in those
Yeah,
promos.
all of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so like you said, the all the murals in the show, but the murals are kind of like what that artist curates to show the public.
Yep.
So I also do all like the private work that's in his studio, which is kind of like his, research and development work, right? So that has
like backstory.
It has a more raw look than the murals that he's showing. But like you just said, I also have done the waves of promotional artwork. So like every couple episodes, they'll roll out more art. Like when Muse kind of showed up more in the last week, they've been rolling out more posters and art that I've done for it.
Man, that's really cool that they brought you in the loop, because I know that's not always the case with all the things. So that's really that says a lot about your work, but also it's cool they gave you that opportunity, because it's like that's a huge show.
Yes, I'm really grateful, and I'm really happy to contribute to it. And I've been grateful to like work with all the talented people I got to work with. I got to work with the production designer. His name is Michael Shaw. Fantastic. The producer, Sal Abbinanti, is the one that initially contacted me and hired me. Everyone I've been able to work with, it's funny because I've been on the set also. So it's amazing to have like all my work there on the set and interacting with the actors, and I'll be there when they're filming and watching the filming like right around the corner from a different angle.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's awesome, man. That's fun. I mean, it's cool to get to see it come to life like that, since you spent so much time working on the character. Well, I was gonna say Como, because we we kind of they're one of our sponsors, actually, the Como show, the Comic Art Festival in Lake Como. And so you have something, Rami, you know a little more of the deal on that, right?
Right. So you've got an exhibit coming up, right? You're going to be doing an exhibition at Como.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So I have this incredible amount of work that I did for the show.
Yeah, man.
And we're going to have an exhibit of it in Italy, Lake Como, mid-May. So if people want to see it.
Have you been there before? Have you been to that place, to that show?
Yeah, I do it every year. I love that show.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
I've
Sal.
actually never been, but we kind of work with those guys and
Yeah,
it seems, yeah, I mean, I see the pictures.
It's
Seems
an
like
amazing, it's an
but
amazing
also, yeah,
festival, actually. Yeah, because our
yeah.
video team, we work with them and Steve and Arno. They're great
We've got
guys,
a
and
team in, yeah, we've got a team
yeah,
in Italy that helps capture some of that stuff. So we kind of help put some of the content together. So I've like seen it, but even I'll say even the show itself seemed like a really cool place for artists because like just it's like a little bit smaller. And I mean, it seemed like there were a ton of people there.
yeah. Well, the show is really specialized to just be an original art show.
mm,
So it's just
Yeah.
artists and art dealers, and and they limit the tickets. So the art collectors that come to look at it, they have like a lot of personal direct time with the artists, and it's not crowded, so you have plenty of time to like look through all the art and everything that the art dealers have, and
Yeah.
it's pretty magical. It's in a historic building right on the lake, Lake Como. It's
Yeah, dude,
beautiful
it's
ambiance.
so picturesque. I've seen the pictures from it. It's
yeah,
insane.
it really is, man. So for the and then for the exhibition, I believe it's like specifically going to be Daredevil work at Como. Is that right?
Yeah, the exhibit will be specifically the work I did for the TV show, the murals, the Muse murals,
Yeah.
and so I'll probably focus on the murals, but also a certain amount of like the other work that was also shown on the work on the TV show, but from his studio, which is kind of like the more cruder, rawer drawings. And maybe I can fit
So
in
you're gonna
some of the
ship all that
promo
stuff there?
art.
How does that work? Do you have to ship like huge pallets of stuff there to do that? Like all your art?
I bring it personally myself.
Okay.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I'll bring it like in my carry on there.
So you're gonna bring tons of cases. I mean, I have to travel when I do because I'm a filmmaker. So, we travel wherever we do projects and we work on a bunch of documentaries all around the country. And when we travel, it's like, yeah, we check like 10 cases and it's honestly a nightmare. People are like, they think it's nice to travel. You're like, no, it's like so much work. But I mean, Italy, that's probably still nice there. Yeah.
Yeah, being there is great. But yeah, when you are traveling for conventions, if you're an artist, you're usually going there to like sell your books and
You're
your
working.
artwork.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're
so
hustling.
so often you are. People when they think of a convention, they kind of think you're just like chilling out, but you're usually strategically packing to bring as much as you
Yeah.
possibly can, and then you've got to carry it and bring it there and set up. So yeah, I enjoy it all, but yeah, it is kind of like a military operation.
Dude, that's awesome that you're gonna have like a whole exhibition there. We'll have to make sure we'll get some footage of that stuff too. That would be awesome to see it in person. Are you gonna be posted up there most of the time?
At Como,
Yeah, when you're at Como, like during the show. Yeah.
yeah, I'll have a table there that I'll be at my table the entire time. Talking to our art collectors, and I usually buy some art there myself and trade some art with
Yeah,
other
totally.
art dealers. But yeah, I'll be there the whole time. I'll go there a little early to set up the show.
Yeah.
Cool.
So would you say, David? Would you say that you're something of an art collector as well, comic art collector?
Yeah, yes, I didn't start out that way, but yeah, over the years, actually, Como was instrumental in like a leveling up for me in that regard. Um,
Yeah,
Early
because there's
on,
so many great artists there. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, I kind of started. I guess I started sort of accidentally collecting art because I had this creator-owned series called Kabuki, and
Right.
I would write it and draw it and do everything, but occasionally I would ask for like a variant cover or a pinup or something from another
Yeah.
artist that I respect. And then once they would do a cover or something from it, because it was my character, I would ask to acquire the original art from them just because it was
Right.
personal to
Right. Right.
me.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I'm really blessed that I've got like an original Mike Mignola Kabuki cover, an original Alex
Oh
Ross
wow.
Kabuki cover, Bill Sienkiewicz
Oh
Kabuki
yeah.
cover, Mike
Hell yeah.
Allred, just a
The other
really diverse,
painters. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, like a really diverse group of amazing artists over the years. And that was kind of my first original comic art, but it was just because they did, my own character. But the first time I was at the Lake Como Comic Con, I went there with the idea of selling my artwork, and this wonderful art dealer named Claudio came up to my table and he said, "Oh, I'm an art dealer here, and I would like to own a piece of your work. Would you be interested
Yeah.
in trading some of the art I have for some of the art you have, right?"
Mm,
And so I didn't
totally.
go there with the idea of trading, but
Yeah.
so he came
But
back
he had
with
some good stuff.
yeah, he came back with some other pieces and was like, "Hey, I'm interested in these pieces of yours. Would you consider some of these pieces?" And
Whoa.
I got like an original Frank Frazetta piece,
Oh,
and
really?
Oh man.
yeah, yeah, I got like I got some amazing stuff just to like Sergio Topi, this Italian artist I love. So
Yeah.
there was a certain amount of just like straight up trades that we did, and I was like, oh wow, I got like an original Jack Kirby page, just by trading one of my own pieces.
Whoa.
I think it was a
I mean,
Daredevil page actually. I traded for a Jack Kirby
that's pretty
page.
awesome though. Like you're like, yeah, that's you're at that level where you're like, okay, I can trade my stuff for
Yeah,
that.
and when I say Frazetta, it's not like the $1 million oil painting. It
Of
was
course, yeah.
in this case it was actually a pretty big piece, but it was a figure study that he had done from like the 1950s. But it's like a
Oh, that's
really
kind of cool.
beautiful, yeah, like a really beautiful detailed figure drawing, like of a nude woman from a drawing class he was doing in the 50s. But it was like really
That's kind of
incredible.
cool. Yeah, that's a cool story too. So I'm interested, I mean, all the things, I guess, with the time that we have, but like, yeah, so with Kabuki, I mean, talk about that. Cause I mean, I was not, I mean, I was not really reading comics at that point. I was a young lad. Although like I said, I checked out the book and I mean, it's amazing. But then when I was learning a little more about your backstory, it was kind of like, yeah, this was the thing that you kind of broke in on. I didn't realize that was like, you were teaching yourself how to do the thing though. That's pretty wild.
I'll say this as a something useful to other people who want to do something. I think a lot of people have an idea when they want to do a project. They start because people will tell me about it. They'll say, "Oh, eventually I'm going to do this comic project, and it's going to be
Mm.
this giant world building project that's a 12 issue maxi series, and it's so
I'm gonna
big
find an
and
artist to do it
giant."
for me. Yeah.
Well, it's so big and giant that like they just kind of talk about it forever, and they just kind of never do it
Yeah,
because it's so big.
Mm.
of
And what I
course.
tell people is like if you're going to start something, if you're going to start writing something or drawing something, if especially if it's in comics, just do like a 4 page story or a 6 page story or an 8 page story or even a 2 page story because it teaches you the challenge of the economy of space of using the real estate. And if you think you have like a lot of space, it doesn't force you to kind of crystallize and self edit like what's important to be in that page. But if
Yeah,
you know you only have 4 pages, and if you can convey an emotion and make the reader feel something powerful from 4 pages, that really teaches you like the essence of storytelling in comics. But also, if it's only 4 pages long or 2 pages long, you can already see the light at the end of the tunnel. You know that's something that you can complete. Like that's a realistic
right.
thing to complete. And what I tell people is do like even if it's a 2 page story, you know that you can finish that this weekend. Just do it and it's finished. But then you have momentum. And if you want to do more, you can now build on top of it.
For
And
sure.
the way I kind of found out for myself is I was writing the script, and I was trying to find the right artist for it, and a
Mm.
couple artists didn't work out, and then Bendis and I started working together in 1993 with him as an artist, and he had agreed to do it, and so I had this idea that like, okay, the real artist is going to do this book, but an anthology book asked me to contribute an 8 page story to them. And I thought, well, while I'm waiting for him to start the real artist to start the real story, I'll do an 8 page story of Kabuki in this anthology because it'll help me. It'll be like a good example for the real artist to use of like.
Now, did you have like an ambition to be doing art at that point, or you just were more of a storyteller?
I mean, I had done art. I had drawn and painted my whole life, but in comics, yeah, I was more interested in the storytelling, and I had written the
Yeah.
story, and it seemed like a lot of work to draw it. I like the idea that I
Legit.
had written it, and then someone who's really good could just draw it and make me look good. That's what I hoped would happen. But
Yeah.
but I said, like, okay, this anthology wants me to contribute 8 pages, and I thought, like, 8 pages, I could draw 8 pages, and even if it doesn't look right, I'll still be working out like the look and feel
Yeah.
of this world, and that could be useful to the real artist, right? I'll work out the costumes and the type and the logo and these other details, just to kind of give them something that could be useful to them. And so I just did like this tight little 8 page story. And then and another anthology asked me to contribute another 8 page story. So I did a separate little scene of Kabuki in that 8 page story. And that happened a third time, and then it happened a fourth time. And so I had four little 8 page scenes of Kabuki. They weren't even like continuing each other. They were each separate scenes. But I thought, oh, that'll be useful. And then I thought, well, you know what? 4 times 8, that's 32 pages. I could put those four scenes in a little one shot, and at least I get my Kabuki series like out there, that it exists
Yeah.
and the property is out there, and that can still be motivating to the real artist to do the real series that's coming up after it. So that very first Kabuki story I did in 1994, if you just look back at it, it's four separate 8 page scenes that they don't really relate to each other, but I put them in an order where it feels like they relate. And the
Yeah.
book. No, go
I
ahead.
think it's like a cool. No, I think it's a good. I think it's a instructive way, especially now because that was a different time, and I think now you still get people who talk about that. And I'm a filmmaker, and so I've done a couple of features but a lot of shorts, and so people you get the same kind of questions, but also it's like really the same thing where it's like the creator economy in a lot of ways is better than it's ever been. That's like part of this show is we like to talk, especially with people who do creator owned properties, because that's just like we think that's really interesting, and that's also the kind of stuff that projects that we're like always kind of working on and trying to develop. And we're creator Sal as well. He's the same thing because he's done a few graphic novels of his, and he's always working on stuff, even among all the other things. So it's like it is though, and he's the number one person on that, where it's like you got to be. No one wants to hear you talk about what you're going to do. You just got to do it, and it's easier than ever. But I mean, it couldn't have been easy back then. So like, what did you expect that you were going to just like have this whole career
No,
to come from it? I mean, you wanted to work in comics, but
no, that's a really good point. It was a different world back then. Now we have social media and we have the internet to show somebody
right.
that we exist, right? So back in the 90s, what I did is I physically went to the comic shop, picked up every independent comic, wrote down the address to an independent publisher, and I sent them all in the mail my Kabuki
Yeah, man.
idea, right?
It's
And
cold,
then,
cold, like cold calling,
right, of
basically.
course, it doesn't make any sense. And
So
then
you got to
I
hustle
found
though.
the number to one of them, and I called them, and I was like, "Hey, did you get my amazing project that you're gonna love to do from nobody you've ever heard of?" And they were like, "No, we never saw that. We don't know what you're talking about." But it sounds a little interesting. Why don't you send it again? And this was
So yeah,
Caliber Comics. They had just published The Crow in the early '90s,
Cool.
yep,
and so I sent it to them again, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we could publish that." So they published this little one shot, and it was those four little anthology 8 pagers in one thing, and it was like their best selling book that they had, and since The
damn.
Crow, basically.
I mean, I can see it because it's very unique. Like it does stand out, and I think people were like I mean, that was a time where people were looking for original stories too, right? Like, they were more open to it.
From independent publishers. I mean, there were enough
From
indie
independent
publishers,
publishers.
kind of like how indie film was big at that time.
Yeah,
There was Marvel and DC and Image and Dark Horse, but then there were like a bunch of indie publishers that were just kind of had their own lane, and they were like, "Hey, this one shot did really well," and I'm like, "Okay, yeah, the real artist is going to do the real story," and they were like, "No, just do another one of these as soon as you can."
hmm
So I just kind of tricked myself into doing the art for Kabuki, those 8 pages at a time, and then I put them together, and then it sold, I had modest needs, but it sold well enough for me to eke out a living from it.
Totally.
And
Yeah.
so I just kept doing it that way.
All right, let's take a quick break and talk about how to stay connected and support what we're doing at Comic Book Pros. If you've been enjoying the show, I'd like to take a second to tell you about us, Comic Book Pros. Yes, it's the name of the show. We are a group of creators telling stories around pop culture, comics, and fandom. You can check us out on social media at Comic Book Pros, and our latest project, the feature documentary about Alex Ross, The Legend of Kingdom Come, is now available at legendofkingdomcome.com. Our doc tells the untold story of the making of Kingdom Come, the graphic novel that redefined superheroes, illustrated by Alex Ross, written by Mark Waid, the artists who made it happen, and of course, featuring heavily the story of Alex. We're hosting a special screening on May 10th at the Music Box Theater in Chicago with Q&A and special guests. If you're in the area, we'd love to see you there. Tickets are available at musicboxtheater.com or just hit the link in the show notes. If you want to support, you can order the Blu-ray and give us a follow. We have more original projects in the works, as well as connections and ways you can support other creators. So thank you for listening to Comic Book Pros.
So you were saying that was kind of, you got into Daredevil through that basically, right? And because then you did interiors and then covers. You've done a lot of covers on that too, right?
So with Kabuki, I would do like a brand new issue every 2 months. And I was doing them at like 48 pages, which doesn't make any sense. I should have been doing like a 20-page book every month instead of a 48-page every 2 months. But anyway, I just did the book and the art and the story that I wanted to do, which was nice because I got to develop in my own kind of vacuum.
Totally.
Which I think is better than if I tried to get a job at Marvel or DC first, and then I think I would probably feel like a self-imposed pressure of thinking they had an expectation of a house style or something like that. And I don't even think that's really true anyway. But I think it was good that before anyone else saw me, it was my own work that I was just doing for what I wanted, And then once that was collected, I was pretty diligent in being consistent and coming out on a regular basis. I would put a new book out every 2 months. I was working all the time.
Yeah, that's a huge commitment. That's the hard part, right?
The grind.
You're living with a lot of pressure every day about the deadlines, right?
For sure.
Yeah. But that first volume, it was collected into some big giant collection. And at a convention in 1995, Heroes Convention, I met Joe Quesada. And just for a minute, but, I was meeting other people who were professionals and I was giving them like, oh, hey, I like your art. Here's my book that I write and draw. And I would just give it to them because now I had it collected and it was easy to do that. And Joe Quesada called me up the next week and was like, hey, man, I read your story and I really like your writing in it. He goes, we should collaborate. Like, you should write something, with him doing the art. And he had a couple ideas that didn't pan out. And then cut to like 1997, Joe Quesada called me up. At this point, I had moved Kabuki to Image Comics in 1997. And Joe Quesada called me up and said he was going to be taking over 4 titles at Marvel, which would be under the Marvel Knights imprint. And Daredevil was one of the titles, and Joe Quesada would be doing the art for it. And Kevin Smith was writing it, and he asked me if I would take over the writing after Kevin Smith with Joe Quesada on art. So that's how that came about.
And how long were you working on that?
So I wrote the issues 9 through 15. Kevin Smith wrote issues 1 through 8. I wrote issues 9 through 15, and Joe Quesada also asked me to create a new character, and that became the Echo character, which got
of course, it's on the show as well,
last year, right? So I wrote 9 through 15, and he had also said, hey, you also do art. Do you want to do covers for this? And I said, I'm really happy writing this with you, a professional comic artist doing the art. I literally tried to talk him out of it, saying I literally said, no one at Marvel wants to see my artwork. I just want to write it. And then, you give them the art that the Marvel people want to see, from the story, And he goes, okay, we'll do this. He goes, do the first cover yourself And he goes, all the other covers we'll collaborate on. And I'm so grateful that he insisted that I contribute art covers. So now, like, that very first issue, it's my first work ever for Marvel that I wrote.
Yeah.
It's also my first art I ever did for Marvel because I did the cover for it. So I'm really
That
grateful
is
for
really
that.
cool. Okay. I didn't quite. And so you did a number of those, or did you do all those covers?
Yeah. So the first cover I did the whole thing myself, like Joe said,
Yeah.
and the other covers I did a
You do this
layout.
collab. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It was kind of a fun collab where I did the layout for it. Joe penciled it. Palmiotti inked it. And again, this is before we had
Oh
email
yeah,
or
I know
scanners.
Jimmy. Yeah.
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 So after it was penciled and inked, they would FedEx the original to me. Because, like I said, before we have email or scanners, right? This is like 1998, you know? They send it to me in a FedEx box, and then I pull it out. I paint directly on it and hope I don't ruin it. And then I put it back in the FedEx box and I send them the original. And in the midst of doing that, my friend Bendis was still writing and drawing his black and white indie crime comics, and I stuffed in Bendis's crime comics in the FedEx package. So Casada goes, okay, yeah. So I got the FedEx package. What are all these black and white indie books doing in there? And I go, oh, that's my best friend Bendis. He writes and draws those. Maybe maybe you have a spot for him at Marvel too. And he goes, oh, I don't really like his artwork. I don't think he's right for Marvel. And I go, well, why don't you just read it and just see what you think? And so he calls back. He goes, oh, I do like his writing. And so while I was writing Daredevil and Joe Quesada was drawing it, he had become editor in chief of Marvel. So all of the issues were getting later and later because he doesn't have time to draw like he used to, right? So basically, he was like, "Hey, man, I can't keep up this pace of drawing anymore." He was like, "Do you're already writing Daredevil. Do you want to take over drawing Daredevil as well?" And I go, well, "Oh, you know what? This might be a great opportunity. My friend Bendis. What if what if we collaborate on the next Daredevil story?" So I basically went from the writer of Daredevil, and I took a job as the artist of Daredevil, just to get my friend the writing job at Daredevil.
So yeah, you were all in there. That's an interesting story. I did not know a lot of that. So I
A
guess this is yeah,
a
a
rare
true
hybrid,
retelling. Yeah.
like of
Yeah,
writing and
yeah, they did
drawing.
so much writing, I guess. I mean, I knew that you obviously did your original book. Um, that's cool. I mean, I wish we had the time to get into every single thing, but like, I mean, this has been a really interesting conversation. Like, let's jump way ahead and let's talk about what you got going on now. Obviously, you're doing the thing in Como, but like, what's next for you? What are you working on, or anything you're trying to plug?
As far as plugging, I would definitely urge people to find that big Kabuki volume that just came out from Dark Horse. It's
Totally.
got it's all my writing, but all my art. It's painting. Every era of Kabuki has like a different art approach and a different style and a
Yeah,
different media. So you can see like a lot of my evolution, but like as the book was evolving, I was evolving too. And that's the work that got me the offer to do everything at Marvel, kind of the foundation of my work in comics. Also, Brian Michael Bendis and I, we worked on Daredevil. That Daredevil script got
you
him
guys
the
have another
offer.
book that you did together too, right?
Yeah, yeah. There's a creator-owned series that we're doing together. It's we also worked together on Jessica Jones. So I'll finish the story a little bit. That Daredevil story that he wrote got him the offer to pitch for Ultimate Spider-Man, and he got it, and he suddenly became like the biggest writer at Marvel for the next 18 years. And he wrote a series called Jessica Jones. I did the cover. That was a TV show. For that, the TV show, I worked on the opening titles of it and got nominated for an Emmy for those opening titles. So went to the Emmy for that
Yeah,
weird book, that came out like 20 years ago.
that's
Um,
amazing.
and then I ended up doing the film titles for the film Captain America: The Winter Soldier. On that one,
Yeah,
I
I
comes
saw
at
that too.
the end of the
I saw
film.
that. Yeah.
But so Brian and I have worked together over the years, Indie Comics, Marvel. We finally did our own creator-owned project together, and that's a series called Cover.
Right.
Dark Horse just collected it. It's a 6-issue series. It has all the extras, and we're currently working on the next volume of that right now.
Oh, you're doing more of that. Okay. That's not one that I've read. I did check it out though, and I was kind of just like glancing at it, and it seemed really cool. And that was like, well, I had in my little in the intro, like that was I was fascinated because it seems like, I mean, even with Daredevil, yeah, it's a lot of these kind of, it's this assassins kind of spies kind of, and then the connection that's another fun fact I didn't know, this thing about the cultural envoy. What's that about?
Yeah. So I would definitely urge people to read that collection called Cover. I think you'll really
Right, because
enjoy it.
that's the connection. Yeah.
It's a very accessible book, but it is inspired by my overseas work for the U.S. State Department. So over the last few administrations, I had spent much of the time overseas, like in North Africa, former Soviet areas, Asia, working with different embassies for the U.S. State Department in a variety of capacities there, often teaching at refugee camps, teaching in youth prisons,
Wow.
UNHCR camps, a
That's
variety of
cool.
it's
Wow,
a
so
whole
you traveled
show.
all over.
Yeah,
So they brought you in. Did they bring you in as like a teaching kind of artist? Is that the connection, or this was like something separate totally from that?
Yeah, it kind of works that way. Like so there were a couple years I was in Tunisia, which borders Libya, and when I was in
Yeah,
Tunisia, it was under CVE. That's what it's funded with, which is technically it's countering
like
violent
call.
extremists. But
Oh,
the agenda was to interact with at-risk youth and make them less susceptible to recruitment from extremist groups
yeah.
because a lot of the militias in Libya would be recruiting young people in neighboring countries on the border. So basically, we would travel in like in an embassy vehicle, which is basically like a bulletproof SUV,
Mm.
and
Right.
I would teach at all these areas on the borders of Tunisia in Libya, and just to kind of show remind these young students with these bright minds like what is out there, what they're capable of doing, and encouraging them to make their own stories and their own books and develop their own talents. And I remember being a kid and having an idea that you want to do something, and just like an adult, taking your dreams seriously kind of goes a long way at that formative age. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
So the idea was to make them more inclined to the positive direction and less inclined to the negative.
That was very fascinating. I mean, there's a lot in this conversation. I mean, I think that it's amazing that you've had such an eclectic career. I mean, I don't know anybody else who has had that kind of run, and I think your work's amazing, man. I mean, I think that we like I said, we talk to a lot of painters. We work with a lot of painters, and so it's like a unique. I think, especially in the world of comics, it's like there's people out there doing it, but it's not everybody. And I think your work, even among it, really stands out and is very unique. And honestly, like the creator own thing, I think is pretty amazing. So, are you going to do any? Have you ever thought about going back to that, doing a little more?
Yeah, I've done, like I said, the Kabuki collection is over 1,300 pages, and I would love to do more of that.
Right? Yeah,
But because it's
yeah,
so big, I
It's
figured I should do
extensive.
some other creator-owned things first. So
yeah.
Bendis and
Cool
I will continue with Cover, and there's some other projects
cover. Yeah.
we have in mind as well. Um, I'll also mention this since I'm doing all these murals for the Daredevil show. I was able to draw upon some experience. Like when I was in North Africa, I did murals in Tunisia with there was like a street art crew from
Oh,
Morocco called Taraza, and we would do
Oh,
large
cool.
murals together on like the buildings in the city there. Like, and so like sometimes there's a school that I taught at in Tunisia, and then I did a giant mural on the wall as well. So it was a good experience to draw on, applying for the perspective of Muse for how he would do his murals.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Well, you're going to be in Como. It sounds like you got another book out. So, the collection of Kabuki is now available. Sounds like where people can pick that up.
There's
Dark
also
Horse, right? Yeah.
a Marvel Art of David Mack book that just came out.
Yes.
Actually,
Yeah,
this
and
is one thing I
was that
wanted
the
to talk
Kickstarter?
about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because that is the Kickstarter, right? Yeah, I think one thing that's so interesting, David, with your career is that, you started out with this creator-owned property, and like back then, it's not what it is now. Now, creator-owned is like the thing, And I saw that you had the Marvel art of Dave Mack with Kickstarter, and was just wondering like what your experience was like doing a Kickstarter.
It was a pretty good experience. It did pretty well, and I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
well.
Looks like almost 300K. Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I wasn't running it, so I didn't do it myself. It was through
Okay.
Clover Press ran it.
Yeah.
So
Totally.
So
so
they
they
did the
were
book. They did the print and everything. Yeah.
yeah, they did all the printing and all of that. But yeah, they put together a really good book. I'm really happy with the book. Vincent D'Onofrio did like an intro in the book for
So
me.
Oh
cool.
yeah. That's awesome, man. Well, amazing. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for coming on the show, David. This has been an awesome conversation. And yeah, definitely check out his work. It seems like you got 2 books out here, lots of ways to support. And of course, if you're going to Como or you're from the Como crew, I mean, you got to check out the exhibition. That sounds really dope. I wish I could go.
Thanks, David, man. It's great to meet you. Thanks for being here.
No, thanks so much, guys. It was a joy.
All right. Cheers, man. Take care.
All right, take care.
All right, there's our interview with David Mack. Definitely, he was talking about being a creator, some of the projects he's involved in, original stuff. Kabuki obviously was one of the first ones. Do you remember when that came out, Sal?
Oh yeah, big. It left a big mark. David was one of the, still is, but it was one of the super independent creators, meaning he did it most of it himself. And then you would see David at every show, really, really banging the drum, passionate about his stuff. And you couldn't go by his table in Artist Alley or in indie, in small press and not stop and see David, because he always had a tremendous setup and great stuff. And and he was passionate about it. And
He said he didn't even want to illustrate that book. He said that he wrote it and that he couldn't find anyone to do it for him, so he taught himself how to become an illustrator.
Well, as an indie creator, you got to have passion. You really got to believe that what you're doing is worthwhile.
Yeah.
And that's what you always got from David. A lot of indie creators are kind of the aw shucks guys, or I don't know, or I'm not so sure. And it's like, no, if you go at it like that, then you're going to get your ass handed to you. And David was always very forthcoming on. He had a strong belief in his stuff. And I actually was introduced to David through Alex Ross when I was
Oh, really?
when I was hanging out with Alex. He was tight with David at the time, and they introduced us and we started talking. So I would see him at all the shows. So
Yeah. Well, he's going to be at Como this year.
yeah, and David's good people. I mean, there's only about 5 people in the industry that I like, and David's one of them.
That's it for today's episode of Comic Book Pros. Huge thanks to David Mack for sharing his incredible story. Be sure to check out the new Kabuki Omnibus from Dark Horse that he mentioned. And if you're headed to Italy this May, of course, he's got his exhibition at the Lake Como Comic Art Festival. If you like this episode, subscribe to Comic Book Pros on your favorite podcast app and follow us on @ComicBookPros on Instagram, TikTok, and X for new clips, behind-the-scenes content, and future guests. This episode was produced by Rami Atassi and edited by Mason Vendetti. Until next time, keep creating great work and reading comics. We will see you very soon.